way of greeting an audience. Because the general greeting is what you are all accustomed to. Alaykum. Because Allah said so in Quran, وَإِذَا جَاءَكَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِآيَاتِنَا فَقُلْ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ كَتَبَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ الرَّحْمَةِ. Allah Azza wa Jal says, whenever somebody who believes in our message, our ayat, comes to you, greet them with Salamu Alaykum. Allah didn't say, except if it's only women, do it this way. Except if it's only brothers, do it that way. So it's the general greeting. And I don't know why I'm talking about that, so let's begin. Okay. Tonight I have the next maybe 25 minutes or so to talk to you a little bit about reclaiming your legacy, the Muslimah's legacy. I love this topic. I've talked about this topic several times in my life. And every time I talk about the Muslimah and her legacy in Islam, it's kind of exciting because it's untapped territory. Very few speakers around the world, unless they themselves are females, very few of them actually uncover this large vault, this huge treasure in our Islamic history, a woman's role in preserving and protecting and propagating La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Let me tell you a couple things. Number one, do you know that over 10,000 narrators of hadith are women? Did you know that there does not exist a single weak narrator of hadith that is a woman? There is no woman that has ever fabricated a lie or a hadith against the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did you know that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, his first teacher was his grandmother? Did you know that even contemporary scholars like Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, his first teacher was also his grandmother? This is what women are. One of the greatest and most important teachers to Ibn Hazm, which is a great scholar of hadith during the third generation Tabi'un period, his greatest and most important influence that got him on the path of knowledge was also a shaykha, was also a woman who was a scholar during that time. And he quotes her quite a bit in his works. Did you know that Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah started his road towards seeking knowledge from his mom? His mom said to him, when you go to Medina to learn from Imam Malik, تَعَلَّمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِ قَبْلَ عِلْمِهِ. Go and learn from his etiquettes before you take from his knowledge. Let me tell you what kind of a man Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah became, because he strived and he put so much effort in just being a good man. He would be sitting with his shaykh, and the shaykh is teaching him a book. But Imam al-Shafi'i would sit there and he would be too shy to turn the page, because he was afraid that if he turned the page, the sound of the paper would disrupt the shaykh whilst he was talking. So he'd wait, and when the shaykh would finish that page, he would actually ask permission for every single page. Can I turn the page? And the shaykh would allow him. Do it again, turn the page, the shaykh would allow him. And that's his etiquettes. That's with his shaykh. Can you imagine the mannerisms he had with his family, his mom? This all started from you, women. Do you know in the Quran, a revolution happened in the Muslim world? Allah said just a few words. وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ. For women, they also get a portion. They get inheritance. Before this ayah in Surah An-Nisa, women were actually a product of inheritance. You can actually inherit her as a product. So depending on which tribe she belonged to and where she came from, the Quraysh at that time, or the Mushrikun at that time, they would stamp a value on her. And then the family, depending on who died within the family, this is the value. You can inherit your own, you can actually pass on your own daughter as inheritance for your other sons and your other relatives, subhanAllah. So when Islam was born, that's when Allah said, for women, they get a portion now. Now they can actually inherit from the family as well. Did you know that in the Quran, every time a woman is mentioned in Quran, so we're talking about great figures like Maryam, alayhi salam, Asiya, radiallahu anha, all of these great women, the mother of Musa alayhi salam, anytime they speak in Quran and they make a dua to Allah, Allah quotes them in Quran. All of their du'as are quoted. And even if they didn't make a dua, so like the case of Khawla bint Tha'labah radiyallahu anha, her situation she had with the Prophet ﷺ, I'm sure some of you, or at least most of you, know her story. This is the woman that was living with an abusive husband. And the husband used to beat her, and he used to take away her money. He didn't provide for her basic necessities or give her any rights. So one day they were having a conversation, and Khawla expressed an opinion about that conversation. He got upset with her, and he said, "You are like my mother's back," which is of course an expression of divorce back then. It's basically saying, my mother would turn her back to me because I would never marry her. So you're like my mom. That was the way they would divorce their women back then. It's a despicable and disrespectful way to talk to any human being, let alone your own wife. So Islam came and abolished that kind of talaq or divorce. When she got that from her husband, she got out of her house, she ran to her neighbor's house, put on some clothing. That's how the story is narrated. And that tells you that her husband didn't even provide proper clothing for her. So she went and she grabbed a garment, she covered herself, and she ran to the Prophet ﷺ. And she said, "Ya Rasulullah, my husband just said this to me. And I'm done. This is it. I don't want to be with him anymore." The first standard response that any counselor would give when a marriage situation comes to you, especially when you know both sides, is the first thing you try to do is preserve the marriage, especially when it's not a life and death situation, it's not something extreme. You try to preserve and keep the couple together and let them work their problems through. Counsel them, advise them, but stay and hang in there. Try to work this out. So the Prophet responded to her and said, "He's an old man, Khawla. Can you still hang in there with him? He's an old man." And she said, "Ya Rasulullah, I can't deal with him anymore." And then she complained. She says, "If you can't help me, I'm going to ashtaki ilallah. I'm going to complain to Allah." So what does she do? She complains to Allah about her husband. What did Allah do in return? قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوَرَكُمَا. Allah put an ayah in Quran affirming that He not only heard her, but He gave her a definite response. He said the word qad. Qad in Quran means that whatever comes after these two letters, qaf and dal, whatever is mentioned after qad, it is haram for you, the reciter, to disobey or disregard whatever comes after qad. Because the word qad is a term used to affirm a sentence. It's to basically erase any form or level of doubt in that particular sentence. So Allah says, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ. Indeed, by no means Allah Azza wa Jal hears you. Allah only does this for a woman. You know, from that ayah, Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, you know what he said? He said from this ayah, because there's no ayah in the verse that exists like this, that Allah affirms He hears this call except for Khawla. Scholars, they said that this ayah proves that there is an element of preference for the woman when she calls upon Allah as opposed to when the man calls upon Allah. Allah gives her special attention. Especially when she has no way out of a problem. She's tried and exhausted every possible avenue, every option to resolve an issue, and she can't. So now she just says to herself, that's it. I'm just going to rely on Allah. When she reaches to that stage, which for you and I is basically, it's her lowest point, she speaks to Allah. Allah says, oh, you're stuck? Okay, you're going to have special attention from me. And then Allah affirms it. Then Allah even talks about the situation that happened. قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا. I even heard the problem that was happening between you and your husband. And I also hear تَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, the complaint that you made to Allah. وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ, and Allah is listening. تَحَاوَرَكُمَا, the complaint that you're giving to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hear that as well. Allah just affirmed everything. Not only do I know what your problem is, I hear the complaint that you've come to me with, and I also hear the issue that you've complained to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Incredible. If you fast forward, remember the story of Asiyah radiallahu anha? Asiyah radiallahu ta'ala anha. She went through torture from her husband. And what's amazing in Quran about her story is that when her story is mentioned in Quran, she never calls her husband by his title. She never says my husband. She calls him Fir'aun. So this is the ayah in Quran that Allah says when she made dua to him, رَبِّ بِنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي. She didn't say وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ زَوْجِي وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِي. So this ayah now, here's Asiyah. Let me tell you something about this unbelievable, incredible lady, subhanAllah. You know, one day, she was being tortured by her husband, one of many days. And the husband brought her out in front of all his people and he laid her on the floor. This is his wife, man, subhanAllah. He lays her on the floor and he puts a boulder on her stomach. Ibn Kathir mentions the story. Puts a boulder on her stomach under the blazing sun, and he calls all of the people to gather around her so that they can taunt her. They can poke fun at her. So guess what Asiyah radiallahu anha is doing? She's laughing. She's smiling. It's as if she's having a good time, subhanAllah. So the husband now, or Fir'aun, is saying, look, not only does she not acknowledge that I am the Rabb, because this is why she was going through this. She wouldn't say to her husband, you are the Rabb. She always affirmed Allah was the ultimate master and creator. So because she didn't do that, she says, look, not only does she doesn't acknowledge that I am Rabbukum al-A'la, but in addition to that, here I am torturing her, and look at her, she's just laughing. You know, Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he said that what was happening here, stories narrate that when she was being punished, every single time that she was being tortured, Allah would show her images of paradise, and she would actually feel a cool breeze at the moment she's being tortured under the sun. SubhanAllah. That's Asiyah radiallahu anha. So she made a dua to Allah. She called Allah Rabb, which is incredible, because almost every time a woman's dua is mentioned in Quran, it's always using the term Rabb. Maryam alayhi salam, so here's Jibreel alayhi salam coming to give her the bushra, the glad tidings that you're going to have a child. What did she do? قالت إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِالرَّحْمَنِ مِنْكَ إِن كُنْتَ تَقِيًّا. She now says, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ, how could I be pregnant? And she asks Allah, she calls him by a title of Rahman, the merciful one, that this claim of you saying I'm pregnant or I'm going to conceive a child, this is absurd. Taqiyya, this is absurd. And of course now, this is incredible to me when I look at this story, just on the outside without even diving in. Just on the outside, Jibreel alayhi salam now has to convince her. قال إنما أنا رسول ربك. He has to start convincing Maryam now because she's not tolerating this one bit. And he has to start saying to her, look, I was a messenger sent from Allah. She was so determined to preserve and protect her honor, to preserve and protect her status of who she was, that she wasn't even going to let this so-called angel, or whoever this individual was, who was bringing a direct message from Allah, convince her. Now I'm going somewhere with all of this, okay, so bear with me. So you're hearing about Asiya, you're hearing about the status of a woman in the Quran. I mean, I can go on and on. We have Surah An-Nisa, we don't have Surah Al-Rijal. We have a surah for women, we don't have a surah for men. We have Surah Maryam. You know, we have a surah devoted to this incredible woman. Anybody who thinks and believes that the Quran doesn't honor women, honestly doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. They haven't studied the religion at all. Anybody who believes that Islam survived without the role of women is literally psychotic, has never really read Islamic history. One of the greatest women, Amara radiallahu anha, she was one of 2 or 3 people that protected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Battle of Uhud. Can you imagine what this picture looks like? Here's the Prophet of Allah, a man who Allah himself is protecting as well. But Allah gives him 2 or 3 others to be there and surround him and protect him. One of them is a woman. Can you imagine what this image looks like? The Prophet of Allah is just taking shelter behind this lady. Can you got my back? Okay. And he's just kind of going around with her. And what is she doing? She's got her sword in front of her. One of the mushrikeen is coming on his horse, and he's coming directly for her. Instead of her saying, Ya Rasulullah, come, let's get around, let's go to the back, let's go do this. You know what she does? She stands in front of the horse, marching towards the Prophet ﷺ, and she takes a blow to her shoulder that puts her in a coma for 1 year. That's Amara. When she broke out, or she woke up from the coma, you know what the first thing she did? She had 2 sons that were kidnapped by Musaylim al-Kadhab, the man who claimed prophethood during the time of Prophet ﷺ. He kidnapped her sons while she was in a coma. When she got up, the first thing this mother should be concerned about is what? Her children. Where's my kids? I haven't seen them in so long. I don't even know when the last time I saw them. Where are they? That's not what she does. The first thing she says is the Prophet okay? Man, what a woman. What a story, subhanAllah. That's just the story getting warmed up. She eventually goes to Musaylim al-Kadhab's mansion. She grabs the locks on the door and she starts banging on the door, saying, give me my sons, because they were held in prison in the mansion. That's what you call an incredibly brave woman, subhanAllah. Now, where is all of this going? Sisters, let me tell you something. I would probably guess maybe within the last decade or so, the sisters in our ummah have started stretching. Before that, and I do understand that it's not all your fault, but before that, most of them were sleeping. It could be for cultural reasons, why they were never given opportunities, they were never given attention, they were never educated. It could be bad situations, relatives, marriages, things that sort of kept them entrapped, that opportunities that were in front of them were simply not presented or offered to them. I get it. And I get it because when I look at what's happening on the ground and what the books say, لا تمنعوا نساءكم المساجد. Don't stop your women from going to the masjid. But then when I look on the ground and I look in some homes, yeah, I get it. It's not always that convenient. That she can just say to her husband or whoever, is looking after her, yeah, I want to go to a conference. I want to go to a masjid. But in the last 10 years, mashallah, sisters, they started stretching. They're not actually awake yet. They're still getting up. But when I say they start stretching, of course, it's a metaphor to say that all the adults here, like the mature adults, the elders and so on, did you ever remember 10 years ago at least, or 15 years ago, do you remember if there was ever a sisters' conference anywhere in the world? Just think about it. Did girls ever put together something like this? It didn't exist. But in the last 10 years, I can't even count how many conferences for sisters only I've attended. I can't even count them. So I know work is happening. I know that this generation is starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And they're starting to see where they belong in this ummah. And they're starting to trickle and come back to all of those cultural and traditional barriers that have happened and that they've been imprisoned by. They're starting to break down these barriers. They're starting to educate themselves. They're starting to learn their deen. They're starting to take it seriously. But here's my first point that I want to at least share with you. Sisters, always remember one role that you play that is significant for you as a woman. And that is your righteous deeds. Your righteous deeds is significant to you. I know it's good for all of us. I know for all men, women, children, etc., we all need to be focused on righteous deeds. But especially you. Why? You're the first public school, middle school, college. You're the first professor. You're the first teacher. You're the first shaykh. Allah gave you a role. Allah gave you this. You didn't decide this. Allah put this role on you. The day that Allah allowed a woman that she could conceive a child, she could get pregnant and conceive a child, now she has exclusive, unique responsibilities to her no one else can do. Now this is important. Because when a woman can carry a child, you actually represent Ar-Rahman. You actually are an image of what, or you define what Rahma is. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then listen to this. The womb of the mother is called Rahim in Arabic. The womb of the mother is called Rahim in Arabic. Rahim is the root word for mercy. Now think, especially young people here who aren't parents, of course, you gotta listen to this. When your mom is pregnant, okay, when you were in your mom's tummy, you didn't have to pay rent. You didn't have to go do groceries. You took all of her food, all of her vitamins, all of her energy, and you took all of her space. And now she has to adjust the way that she sits because of you. She has to adjust the way she lies down and sleeps because of you. She has to now be careful of sharp edges in the house because you're there. She has to go through, as Quran puts it, wahnan ala wahn. Wahn by definition is pain that accumulates. It's not equal pain. So one wahan on top of another wahan. So the pain, the more she gets into her pregnancy, it keeps getting what? It keeps getting more painful. It gets, as Allah says in Surah Al-A'raf, فَلَمَّا أَثْقَلَتْ. When her tummy became heavier, so now she has to deal with weight. She's getting heavier, she's gaining weight. Which woman in the world is proud of that, right? But she has to deal with that now. And what? In the name of what? In the name of you, the child that is in that mother. But here's what's incredible. Then she has to deliver this child. and she could die. All parents know this. Going into labor is life and death. This is why scholars unanimously agree, if a woman passes away during labor, she dies as a shaheed. And all of her dua that she is able to even think about during labor are all accepted from her. So now she's in this situation, and husbands are miskeen, man, you know, because they just stand there. They can't do anything. You know, she could die right in front of his eyes. He's a miskeen fella, man. He just can't do anything. Then she gives birth to this child. And now, you know, all the mothers here, of course, know, and everybody I'm sure knows that, you know, she has to go through a healing period. She has to heal now. So if I break my hand, I can at least say to my boss, hey, I can take 3 months off to heal. She goes into a 24-hour rotation the moment that child is born. So now she has to sit there and feed the child, nurse the child, comfort the child, change, and do all of that stuff. And while she's changing his diapers, he like sprays her, or he poos on her. And you know what she does? She's like, oh, you're so cute. It's my brand new abaya, but oh, it's so cute. She just responds with what? With mercy. No matter what her child is doing to her, a mother always responds with mercy. That's why when a mother and a woman does righteous deeds, it's very different. When it comes to reward, accountability, we are the same. That's why Allah says in Quran, "Man amila salihan min dhakarin wa untha." Allah says, whoever does righteous deeds from males and females. Why not just say whoever does righteous deeds, like all of us? Why single out males and females and not just make it into one? Because when it comes to accountability in deeds, we're the same. The value of the deeds, we're the same. When it comes to performance and responsibilities, we're different. The little things a woman does for Allah are mountains to Allah. They're mountains. Why? One of the reasons only is because of this whole pregnancy thing Allah puts her through. And in addition to that, her stomach is called Rahim, which is the root word for Rahman. And this is why in the Hadith Qudsi, Allah spoke to the stomach of the mother and said, Samaytu laka bi ismi. I named you after my name. And that's why scholars said, if you want to really understand what the true mercy of Allah is, then look at the mercy a mother shows to her child. That's your legacy. You are people of mercy. You know when you have this quality of being merciful and compassionate, and you know, like one sister told me, this topic of modesty and haya is like beating a dead horse. Okay, we get it. But you know why that quality in a woman is so significant? Because that is the introduction to all of the good qualities of being merciful and patient. All of that is introduced to her through her haya. She needs haya in order to become a gentle, merciful woman, not just to her family and to her children, but to people around her. Now, having said that, my first lesson, and I'm only going to share 3 of them with you, my first lesson to you, if you want to preserve your legacy as a woman, then take your righteous deeds Allah gave you the ability to perform seriously, because your legacy will begin with that. You probably don't have all the opportunities or accessibility to education. You probably can't enter like Islamic schools and things like that. Maybe those facilities are either dried down, watered down, or they're simply not available to you. I can't tell you. You see, I graduated from Medina. And I can't tell you, one of the most common questions I get, aside from how do I apply to Medina, is, Shaykh, do they have a women's section? It's a good question, but unfortunately, not right now. Not right now. She wants the education, so her next option is to maximize what she has in front of her, and that is the ability to perform righteousness. That's how you start raising Abu Bakrs. That's how you start raising Ibn Taymiyyahs. And that's how you start raising legacies. You start building a legacy with your family and children. Why? Because their memory of you is not, my mom always used to talk on the phone. That's not how they remember you. They remember my mom. She reminded me of Asiya. Whenever, my dad tried to push her around, it was like Asiya radiallahu anha in my house. My mom was determined. No matter what the climate of Islamophobia was out there, my mom, she held on to her hijab. She never compromised her deen. That was my mom. That's the legacy you start to build. And what is it? You didn't graduate from no fancy university. You didn't go anywhere. You didn't do any of those things. You just simply followed the simple gifts Allah gave you. Number 2. The second thing that I want to leave you with, inshallah ta'ala, sisters, is be proud. Be proud of not who you are, but what you are. When I say what you are, is whatever status you have with Allah at this point. If you're not educated, say Alhamdulillah. If you've never studied the deen intensively, say Alhamdulillah. Because the fact that you're sitting in this audience right now is a sign that Allah already loves you. Prophet ﷺ says that whoever Allah loves, what does He give them? He gives them knowledge. What are you doing right now? You're trying to learn your deen as best as you can. This is a sign you have good in you. So build some sense of pride. That's what Maryam did. That's what the mother of Musa alayhi salam did. That even though she's commanded by Allah, here, take your child and put him into the river and just let him go, she still prayed to Allah that Allah should protect him. She still did that even though her heart felt pain to let go of her son. So build that sense of pride in you, that you have what it takes to carry the message of deen. I honestly believe we are all alive in 2016 because Allah sees we have what it takes to carry the message of the Quran. Otherwise, you know where we would be right now? We would be in a generation where if you heard the word fitna, you'd be like, what the heck is that? If you heard the word zina, you'd be like, oh my God, who would do such a thing? Murder, stealing would all be foreign to you. Allah can put you in the most perfect generation, but you're here. And the climate out there, I know what it is. And may Allah give you guys strength. I know that in this part of the world, you guys have it really difficult. You're really being put through a grind. The Muslim Ummah in this part of the world is really being tested and put through a grind. But it's amazing to me that even though that's happening to all of you, Allah still told you, لَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Allah said, don't you dare die and leave this earth unless you are Muslim. That's your legacy. Be proud of who you are, because when death finds you, it doesn't apologize and say, oh, wait a minute, you're watching a movie? I'll come back when you're in sujood. Oh, wait a minute, you took off your hijab today? I'll come back when you put it back on. No. Be proud. Hold on to this religion, man. This thing about Jannah is not going to be easy. And the last and final sentence that I leave you with, inshallah ta'ala. Understand very well how significant you are for the message and the propagation of this religion to carry forward. Understand that you have a responsibility to carry this message, to learn as much of it as you can. Do you know how many women scholars there are right now? Some of the female teachers of Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah are still alive teaching in the Prophet's Mosque. They're still there. They have multiple PhDs in Islamic sciences. We have a few of them actually in Toronto. We have sisters in Toronto. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, I have the privilege of working side by side with a sister who is mujiz. She is licensed in the 10 recitations of Quran. All 10 of them. I can't wait for when, of course, it's my own fault, it's my own weakness to make the time. that this sister's office is right beside mine and I don't sit there and read to her. 10 recitations of Quran, she's got the license of all of them, and she actually has one of the strongest isnads in the world. And she's just sitting there, Assalamu alaikum Shaykh, just doing her thing. And I'm just like, man, you are like a treasure in this community. And alhamdulillah, she is there. She's got hundreds of students. People travel from all over the city just to read a couple verses to her. 3-4 ayat, and travel back home again. Whatever it is that Allah gave you, be proud of it. Utilize it. Carry that with you. You don't need to get into a fancy university or intensive courses for you to hold on to this message. Whatever Allah has bestowed you with is enough for you to continue forward. And when you have that attitude with the little Allah gave you, that's when Allah teaches you. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Continue to have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. That's the 3 things that I leave you with. And I pray from the bottom of my heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to preserve and protect the women of this ummah. I am very proud to sit here in front of all of you and say that 75% of my students I've been teaching the last 3 years are only sisters. I'm very proud of them. Because I know that when they study, I mean everybody knows when girls study, they destroy the boys, man. They put them to shame. You know, they type things, they put them in booklets, they memorize stuff. It's incredible. The discipline is there, the academic discipline is there. I need you to have more confidence in you so that you can take that discipline now and propagate it to the world. That's what you're capable of. That's why you're sitting here. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.